Hello, everyone. I'm Claudia Cotter. I'm the Executive Director of the California Wheat Commission. And today we have Allison Bright-Rose, who is going to be talking to you about her YOLO Farm to Fork wheat project. So hi, Allison.
Hello. All right. So my name is Allison Bright-Rose. I am the garden coordinator at Dingle Elementary School. I'm a parent volunteer, part of the PTA. I have a fourth grader and a second grader who attend the school. And 4 years ago, I looked at the school garden, which the infrastructure was there. There were some raised beds already built, but we were really only growing weeds at that point, and it really needed to be updated and remodeled. Like the beds needed to be rebuilt. So I coordinated a parent volunteer workday, and we got things cleaned up. And from that point on, started really connecting with the teachers to see what they wanted in the garden, and really developed our garden into a place where the students could learn hands-on agricultural lessons, but everything from science to math to English and language arts. So I just really, as a parent, but I'm work part-time as a food safety consultant, and just really value food and having kids understand where their food comes from, and wanting to get the kids into the garden to really get that hands-on education. So over the last 4 years, we've been really developing great lessons and great partnerships. I joined the board of YOLO Farm to Fork so that I could continue these efforts that were happening at Dingle, and really good things are going on, and you'll see that in the rest of the presentation. And really, how can we expand this to other schools? And really trying to get connections to other parts of the industry and get more opportunities for the kids to see agriculture in action. And then also just what can we do to help grow these gardens in other schools. And let me share now. So here we go. And so this is who I am. And so that leads us into some partnerships that we have specifically at Dingle. We have Chuck Buckingham, who is our garden volunteer extraordinaire, and he has over 40 years of experience in the ag industry, and everything from irrigation and fertilization and how to grow everything that grows in YOLO County. He's been a tremendous asset that we've had for a few years now, and really spurred growing this wheat field in the Dingle garden. He said, hey, we need these kids to see wheat grow, as wheat is a major crop of YOLO County, and it's a major ingredient in a lot of the foods that the kids eat. So he really is the person that helped develop this garden at the Dingle Elementary School. And then also we have a partnership with YOLO Farm to Fork, helping with the educational lesson designs, and then supporting growing the garden with other resources. And YOLO Farm to Fork supports over 66 school gardens in YOLO County. And then the California Wheat Commission, once Chuck said, hey, we're gonna grow some wheat, and then I just happened to be working out near California Wheat Commission's office, and I saw that, and I walked in and said, hey, we're growing a wheat field. Do you have any materials or resources that you could share? And thankfully, Claudia right away said, of course, this is something we'd love to do. So helped supply with some of the educational materials, connected us to some folks in the industry and other industry knowledge, connected us with their lab facilities, which you'll see our field trip mentioned later in this presentation, and then got us connected with the wonderful wheat researchers at UC Davis, Allison Bright-Rose and Sarah Couzet. So they also came and shared their research knowledge and experience and said, hey, we want to help you with the harvest. And they brought the hand sickles and taught our students all about harvesting and threshing and the cleaning of the grain. So they were a wonderful asset. So now I'll get into explaining just the process of what we're doing out in the field. So with prepping the field, we have Dingle Elementary School, which is where I'm the coordinator, we have 1/100 of an acre. It's 28 feet by 15 feet. And then we have another elementary school that's starting this year, and it's at Whitehead, and we'll also have the same dimensions for 1/100 of an acre. We do rotate the crops. So we have wheat, which gets planted in October, and then we before all the commercial harvest happens, and also before the kids leave for the summer. And then we plant beans for the nitrogen fixing in June through September. What Chuck will do is actually he turns the soil with a shovel, removing all the plants and weeds and evening out the surface level, and then irrigates, lets weeds grow back up, takes those weeds out again manually, and then irrigates again. So really is setting up that ground so that it can have an even surface and take the wheat rooting, establishing the root system for the wheat. With planting the field, we're planting 3 different varieties, 2 at Dingle, so half of the plot has Durham, and then the other half has the Summit Hard Red winter wheat. And then at Whitehead, they will be growing the Patwin variety. And Chuck has dialed in his fertilizer distributor, so it was cleaned out before putting in the seeds. But really what he's going for is to get that 25 to 30 seeds per square foot as he's distributing it and walking along with that fertilizer. As far as tilling the field, he created a tool to mimic the larger scale spike tooth harrow. And it varies from a regular rake where it just has straight spikes down. And that just helps once the seed has been distributed, it helps get that seed about 1.5 to 2 inches under the soil so that the seeds won't dry out on top and they'll be allowed to really take on the moisture of the soil. If you're in YOLO County, this tool is certainly available to be borrowed, as it really only has 1-day use when we do this planting. So if we can get it more use out of it, that'd be great, because it is something he created on his own. And then as far as irrigation, there are 4 sprinklers set up in each corner, and it runs to get about 1 inch of water over the entire field. It needs to run about an hour based on how much water is coming out. And of course, based on if there's a lot of wind to dry out that top layer, there'll be more irrigation. And then once it's rooted, we just adjust the water based on the rainfall. And the last 2 plantings, we've had the benefit of enough rainfall that we really didn't add much irrigation after we got the initial rooting. And our wheat field lessons that we do specifically with our students and teachers in the field, we have a 5th grade class that's dedicated to the wheat field, and they will specifically come out for our field prep, observe the empty field, and discuss the fertilizing and making sure that there's nutrients, or we talk about the nutrients in the soil. And then they come out for the seeding and the tilling to observe the total quantity of seed and distribution. Another one, and this is really growing and tracking the growth, that can happen actually weekly, and has so that they can both estimate and measure the growth. Then they're out there for the harvesting and threshing, and then we do the crop rotation. So they will do the same thing with the prep, the seeding, growing, and harvesting with just a different crop. So some of the things that we do on campus, you can see this is the wheat. These students are specifically looking for ladybugs, and it gave us a chance to talk about beneficial bugs as some of our lessons. And that we actually were able to do with more than just the 5th grade class. We were able to get it from 1st through 4th grade as well. So other things that are happening on campus, they're journaling their observations weekly. They're measuring both perimeter, area, volume. They're estimating with the length and the growth. They're taking data and learning how to document data properly and create charts off of that. Different math things are student-generated word problems using that data collected. Also scientific drawing, artistic drawing, the life cycle of wheat, the parts of the wheat, and then, as I already had said, the beneficial bugs and doing ladybug observations, and then really learning about the life cycle and the anatomy of the ladybug. So some online learning activities that now that we have our students online, they can still do scientific drawing, artistic drawing, acrostic poems, story writing, still using math and creating the word problems using data that's provided to them, talking about the life cycle of the wheat, parts of the wheat, and then again, those beneficial bugs. These are all connected to the California content and the next generation science standards. And so that's something that, as part of the YOLO Farm to Fork, help us and help the teachers see where their science standards can connect, and even just some of the common core subject matters can connect, so it doesn't feel like they're teaching something completely separate, that it's all integrated into what they need to be teaching anyway. Then we get into harvesting. This is where our UC Davis researchers were so kind and said, hey, we'd like to help with the harvest, and we'll bring the hand sickles. And this is Sarah is in the picture here. So we cut the heads off the straw, place all those heads in a bucket. We do this about mid-May, again, before the commercial harvest happens and before school ends. So we push it a little bit out of the normal for the students. And then we go threshing. This is a picture of the setup that we have. There was some where we just do by hand with just rubbing and crushing the heads over the screens that are there, but we also did use a gas-powered garden leaf shredder, so something that Chuck will use for composting, and that is on the left-hand side of the screen. It's a green machine there below the person with the plaid shirt. So that was able to separate the seed from the chaff, and that was one step of the process, but we also had the kids rubbing that with their own hands as well. And the kids were involved in doing each of these processes. And then you can see here, there's Claudia with some of our students taking the trays and getting the seed to go through the trays. Once that seed came through and whatever else fell through into the wheelbarrow, then we took a leaf blower on a very light setting to blow off the rest of the chaff, leaving the grain at the bottom. And really this just got repeated until it was clean enough to take to the lab. And then we had this fantastic field trip. Dingle, thankfully, is just a couple of miles away from the California Wheat Commission, and we were able to take the YOLO bus, public transportation, and then walk half a mile there. And just a really great field trip to show the careers that are associated with wheat and get these kids an idea of different career options they can take in the ag industry. At the lab, we had 4 different stations. We had the grain and cleaning and milling station. We had gluten testing, pasta extrusion, and then tortilla making. They got about 30 minutes per station. And then the wonderful folks at the lab were able to make us the whole grain chocolate chip cookies and some whole grain dinner rolls for the students to take so they could really experience that whole grain cooking. So here's just an example of the grain cleaning and milling. They showed cleaning the kernels with the dockage, showing the whole wheat milling on the Purton mock mill, and then showing what white flour milling, what that procedure looks like, and really emphasizing the differences between just the white flour and the whole grain, and emphasizing the importance of the whole grain. They also got to do the gluten testing, the glutomatic, preparing the gluten samples, explaining what's happening and what the results are, and then the alveograph. Claudia, if that's how you can correct me if I'm saying that wrong, but preparing the dough patties prior to the visit, but then also explaining the test and why it's important and what they're looking for, and then they got to prepare samples for the next group. Then they got to have the pasta extrusion, where they did get to prepare 2 different types of samples, the semolina and then the whole wheat flour, explaining the prep and what's the difference with the emphasis on the whole wheat, showing the extruder components, and then actually getting to run the extruder, cutting off the pasta strips, hanging it to dry, and then even getting to boil each of it so that we could have a taste test. And then the tortilla making, the kids, the dough was already made, but they got to help roll it out and then press it and then put it on the stove and cook it, and of course get to eat it. So just another piece about YOLO Farm to Fork. We've had to shift this year, obviously with COVID, and figuring out how do we get these students some of the same information. We're still growing the wheat this year. We've got the 2 different varieties, but what can we do to also get this garden information home to the students? And so as an organization, we created these garden discovery kits. So they're individual home learning kits, and it really a response to online. So getting the kids their hands-on experiential learning. And we are working on that for the wheat specifically, getting the kids the different grains, the 2 different grains so that they can compare, and then getting them some other activities that where they can experience the garden, only just not at school. So if you'd like more information about YOLO Farm to Fork, I've put the website that's available, and it has some of our curriculum on it, as well as just some of the great things that we're doing and different components to our organization. And this was the 5th grade class that got to go out for the lab visit. So thank you, and thank you to Claudia for our partnership. These kids really, had such a great hands-on experience, and, seeing how things can taste so great with that whole grain, and really experiencing and taking these lessons that they will remember for their life. All right, so that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you so much, Allison. That was wonderful, and you put it all together in a nice flow for somebody watching these to be able to get an idea on how to do it. Hopefully, other schools can utilize the information you have, and then I know you have made yourself available to other people who can contact you, right? So
yes,
thank you so much. Yeah, do you have any questions, Kathy, about this program? I know that this might be something new.
I would say no questions specifically about the program. It sounds really quite wonderful that the kids get such a deep level of involvement, and that it flows across the curriculum. Really beautiful hands-on opportunity for the kids.
Yeah, it really has been, and it's available to all the teachers to come out, and they do. We do have the 1 class that's dedicated to the wheat field and more consecutive lessons, but it is something that we utilize for all the grade levels.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, kids just love to get their hands in things and be really active in the learning process. So that's a beautiful thing you've done.
Thank you.
And I have to say that that experience kind of changed the way I saw how kids kind of behaviors is towards whole grains, because what it taught us was that when you presented them with something like this, where they have a connection and a linkage to, okay, I have seen this crop growing, I help harvesting it, and I help processing it, and then make the product, because that's what they help us making the product. And then all these kids saying, maybe I think there was a set 1 saying, this is the best tortilla I ever tried, even though it was made with whole grain flour. You would have expect, where a lot of researchers have said that kids usually don't like whole grains because they're bitter or they're yucky. But this taught us that the way that they experience these, which is what Allison said, experiential type of program, it actually helps them to make the connection and actually accept that as a being yummy product rather than a yucky product. So that taught me something as well.
One of the things we like to say at YOLO Farm to Fork is that kids love to eat what they grow. And so if we expect young people to improve their nutrition, intake more healthy, fresh produce, or even the things that are processed, they understand the connection between growing it, harvesting it, and consuming it. But even more important, they understand how many different options in their careers they could have. I mean, just that trip to the California Wheat Commission was an incredible eye-opener for those kiddos. So we love to do stuff like that, and we hope to do more of it in the future.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity as well. I think it always takes somebody who can come knocking at your door and asking the questions, right, Allison?
Yeah.
If you would have never show up, you know, I would have never
Right.
maybe known about you guys. So it took that one time and been open to help. So yeah, so I would say this program has created a lot of positive things. And I really want to say thank you, Allison and Suzanne, for all your time spending and also just making it happen, because it takes a lot of your time and efforts to make that garden keep on going and growing. Well, and Chuck too, a lot of his work too. So well, I will say this has concluded our introduction to the wheat program